What's up, YouTube? The TheMetaChaser13x is here, and this video has been requested, and it is about team building. Um, I'm going to be going over quite a few factors and key things to keep in mind when you are building teams. I'm going to be going over the type coverage, support, walls, offensive Pokemon, entry hazards, the whole 9 yards, the whole bit. Um, I'm going to try and keep it as brief as possible because I know videos like these would take a very, very long time to do. So, yeah, with that said, I'm going to go to the first of my team building lesson video, that being type coverage. So, for type coverage, for example, a water Pokemon is weak against grass type attacks. The solution? Have a fire type to cover that weakness since fire types resist grass type attacks. Well, what about resisting dragon type attacks? There's only one type that does just that, steel types. Having a steel type on your team is a must for perfect coverage. Seems easy, right? Wrong. Covering all types generally is key to lasting a while in battles. You do not want to have all of one type on your team. That won't cover many types. For instantly perfect coverage, you need a grass type, a water type, a ghost type, and a steel type on your team at least. Grass resists water, electric, grass, and ground. Water resists steel, fire, ice, and water. Ghost resists poison, bug, fighting, and normal. Steel resists poison, grass, bug, dark, ghost, normal, dragon, flying, ice, psychic, rock, and steel. Try saying that all in one breath. Anyways, you want those four to be the core types in your team. It covers all types slash weaknesses. For the last two slots, you can have any Pokemon you want. I would recommend that you make sure that out of your 6 Pokemon team, you have at least those four types to cover a lot, if not all of your weaknesses. For example, Jellicent and Ferrothorn are possibly the best defensive core ever since Skarmory and Blissey. Jellicent handles all of Ferrothorn's weaknesses, while Ferrothorn handles all of Jellicent's weaknesses. To wrap things up in this section, again, make sure you have a wide range of types, both offensively and defensively. No one-typed team will last long unless your opponent either does the same thing or your opponent does not know what he or she is doing. That about wraps things up for type coverage. Let's move on to the next section. So, in this next section here, I'm going to be talking about walls, tanks, support, clerics, and sweepers. So for this section here, I will be going over the roles that certain Pokemon can fulfill. For example, a Regirock is physically defensive, while something like a Regice is a specially defensive Pokemon. That is where tanks slash walls come into play. Regirock should be more able to deal with physical attacks, barring crits or super effective hits, while Regice does the same thing except better on the special defensive side. An Alakazam is a special attacker, while a Metagross is more oriented for physical attacks. It is important to know what attacks to use on defensive Pokemon. A special attack will do more damage to a Regirock, while it does significantly less to Regice. For sweepers, it is when a Pokemon has an exceptionally great offensive stat. For example, a Hydreigon has a base 125 special attack, so it does have the power to potentially sweep unless it gets taken out first. Another example would be Infernape. It can either be a special sweeper, a physical sweeper, or even go as a mixed sweeper. Mixed sweepers are pretty rare in this case. A mixed sweeper is when a Pokemon has great stats in both the special attack and physical attack. A tank is when a Pokemon has exceptionally good stats in the special defense or physical defense area. A Regirock has base 200 physical defense, while a Regice has base 200 special defense. Before I forget to say, toxic / burn stalling from walls is a good way to break down your opponent's teams and possibly cause switches to give you an advantage. For supporters, they can be used as leads, clerics, utility, etc. For example, a Drapion is a great lead to use Taunt, then Toxic Spikes, unless it either gets taken out by a faster Pokemon or it gets taunted first. Taunt is a move that only allows the opponent to use attacking moves. This can potentially ruin your strategy if you rely so heavily on entry hazards to win battles. A great lead for entry hazards would be Aerodactyl, since it is fast at base 130 speed and can use Stealth Rocks. And what they do is inflicts damage to your opponent every switch in. Leads are important in battles, however, a good thing to keep in mind is that you don't always have to lead with hazards. I personally would lead with a Gengar or a Mind Shout to take out the opponent's lead Pokemon, then after that, when given the opportunity, set up your entry hazards and utility. In that case, a Metagross, Ferrothorn, or a Bronzong would be great Pokemon to have fulfill the role of utility. On a side note, to effectively sweep, you should have moves that boost your respective offensive stat to increase the chance of knockouts. To increase the chance of survivability in the case of walls / tanks, you should have either a recovery move, wish support from a cleric, or a move that boosts your respective defensive stat. Clerics are Pokemon who have recovery moves and status healing moves. For example, a Blissey is possibly the best cleric in the current metagame. It has access to Soft Boiled, Heal Bell, etc., as well as support or status inducing moves, such as Thunder Wave or Toxic. After taking this into consideration, your team is starting to come together, but it's not over yet. There's still more to go over, so we're going to move on to the next section. The next thing we will be discussing in this video are items. Items are very useful in battle, and I would highly recommend you have a held item to further benefit your Pokemon. For example, a Focus Sash prevents you from being knocked out in one hit. An item like that would fit well for leads such as Gengar, Mineshout, Aerodactyl, etc. It is also of great use for somewhat frail sweepers like Infernape, Blaziken, Darkrai, etc. Pinch berries are also a good item to have in battle, and it goes great either with their respective offensive stats or with the ability Gluttony. Gluttony is when you eat your berry at 50% or below your health. Also, Harvest is a great ability to go with pinch berries. Harvest is when, at the end of each turn, you have a 50% chance to get back your berry you once ate. It is 100% in sunlight. There are also pinch berries that increase a stat by one stage. For example, a Salac berry raises speed, Pitaya berry raises special attack. There are also berries that restore health, cure status afflictions, etc. Choiced items are also a great way to further boost the sweeping abilities, and I would recommend you have one on a Pokemon that lacks the ability to boost its offensive stats. Choice Band is an item that boosts your attack one stage. Choice Specs boosts special attack one stage. Choice Scarf boosts speed up by one stage. But be very wary though, once you use a move with a choiced item, you cannot switch moves until you either faint or switch out. Leftovers is an item that restores 1/16 of your health at the end of each turn. Black Sludge works like Leftovers, except it is for poison types only. It will cause damage to those who are not of a poison typing. Toxic Orb is an item that poisons the holder. However, there are ways to effectively use it to your advantage. For example, using Trick, a move that switches items with your foe, will give the Toxic Orb to the opponent and poison them. Same with Flame Orb. It also causes damage by burning the holder. There is an ability that can actually benefit from the use of those two items. Guts. Guts is an ability that, when afflicted with a status condition, your attack is boosted by one stage. You combine that with the move Facade, which doubles power when statused, you will be mauling those who do not resist that attack. There are other abilities that benefit from the use of certain items, but I will not go over that right now. To sum it all up, sweepers who have a stat boosting move should use Focus Sash to stay in after one turn. Same with leads. Choiced items should go to those who are powerful but lack the ability to boost their own statuses up. I'm sorry, stats, not stats. What the hell was I thinking? Um, Leftovers should be used for bulky Pokemon who act as tanks. Trick items that will hinder your opponent's Pokemon. We are almost finished, but there's still a little bit more left for this video. So the next part of the video, we're going to be going over the abilities of Pokemon. Now, I'm not going to be going over every single ability because that would take me forever, and I don't exactly have that amount of time on my hands right now. So I'm going to be going over some abilities that are pretty important in especially pertaining to online battling. So, as I said before, it's time to go into some abilities with Pokemon. Overgrow is an ability that boosts grass type moves by 50% when you're down to 1/3 of your health. Torrent is the same but with water type moves, and Blaze with fire type moves. In videos that I have posted in the past about Pokemon analysis, I have demonstrated how well Pokemon abilities can be used and be even better with certain items. For example, Rough Skin, an ability that hurts the attacker when making contact, can also benefit well with the new item Rocky Helmet, an item introduced in 5th generation. Another ability is Sheer Force, an ability that negates secondary effects for moves in return for a 30% boost in the move's power. It also negates the recoil from Life Orb at the price of 1/10 of your health for the price of a 30% boost in your moves. For Alligator, a Pokemon who has that as a hidden ability can benefit well from it since it is both bulky and powerful. Another ability that would go well with Life Orb is Regeneration. When switching out, you regain 1/3 of your health. Mind Shell has that ability, and it can use it well in conjunction with the move U-Turn, a move that causes damage to your opponent while you switch out. Also, the ability Magic Guard, an ability that only takes damage from attacks, nullifies the recoil from Life Orb, so you still get the 30% boost, so that's real nice. Expert Belt is surprisingly underrated. It is an item that has a 20% boost on super effective moves. A Pokemon that can learn a wide range of different type attacks would be a great choice for an item like this. For example, my Emboar at level 50 beat Gets' Hydreigon at level 54. It was hit down to his Blaze range, and I used Flame Charge to boost my speed up while causing about 15 to 20% damage to him. Then I smashed it with Brick Break, a fighting type move. So much for Gets' ace Pokemon, eh? Infernape is also another good choice for Expert Belt. While it isn't incredibly frail, it learns a ton of different type moves, so it can make great use of Expert Belt. There are also abilities that absorb certain type attacks and even give a boost in your HP or one of your stats. For example, Water Absorb, an ability that makes you immune to water type attacks and restores 25% of your health. This works for Volt Absorb as it pertains to electric type attacks. Storm Drain boosts your special attack one stage, and Lightning Rod does the same thing with electric attacks. Sap Sipper boosts your attack up, by one stage, while you have an immunity to grass type attacks. Levitate gives you immunity to ground type attacks, barring the ability Mold Breaker, which cancels out your opponent's abilities. There are a lot of abilities, as I said before, but I will only go over a few really good ones to keep in mind. So now, it's time to get to the main event of this video. It's time to build our team! Okay folks, so in this section of the video here, I'm basically giving you an example of the sort of team that I would build. Um, the first one that we are going to have is Drapion. It is a dark poison type, meaning that it has quite a few resistances and it's only weak to ground type attacks, so that's pretty awesome. The nature that we're going to give it is careful, to boost its special defense up a little bit. The item for use is Black Sludge because it recovers HP for poison type Pokemon. And if you happen to run into a Pokemon that uses Trick, it's basically going to take away your Black Sludge and um, just completely ruin them, unless, of course, they manage to trick that item onto one of your Pokemon. Now, as for its ability, it's known as Battle Armor, which negates critical hits, so that's always nice. The moves that we're going to be using are Toxic Spikes, and what those do is they're like spikes, but when your opponent switches in, they get poisoned. You set up a second layer, they get badly poisoned. They disappear when another poison type Pokemon switches in, so you gotta watch out for that. Um, the next move that we're going to be having is Taunt, so that we can taunt other Pokemon that have a tendency to set up entry hazards. The next Pokemon is, I'm sorry, the next move that we're going to be using is Whirlwind, and that randomly switches and phases out a Pokemon, and it can work in more ways than one. Not only can it rack up entry hazard damage, but say if a Pokemon was trying to set up on you, you whirlwind it out and you basically ruin the strategy in that turn for them. The next move, it's really like the last move that we have. It's really a toss-up. You can use Crunch, which is a very nice 80 power dark type move, or you can use Confuse Ray. So say if your opponent switches, because it can't do anything to you, you basically use Confuse Ray on the opponent that switches in to supposedly counter you and basically have a coin toss of sorts, hoping that it will hit itself because it's got a 50% chance to attack itself. As for the EVs, 252 are going into HP, 212 into special defense, and 44 into speed. That way you can uh, at least outpace or speed tie base 100s that act as tanks or walls. So just sort of keep that in mind. Like even without any physical defense investments, its physical defense points are over 250, and with 212 special defense EVs, it's over 260. So you're going to be taking some hits and fighting back with utility that will annoy the hell out of your opponent. But this isn't the only star on my team. There are others, so let's move on. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing the final evolution of the grass starter Pokemon for Black and White, Serperior. Now, I just want to say on a quick note before I forget, um, I'm not going to be building a team that centralizes around OU Pokemon because I think that those ones will, it's as the tier says, it's overused. I want to showcase Pokemon that don't have as much time in the spotlight and I want to show you just how good that these guys can be. Drapion is RU, as in rarely used. Superior is NU, which is never used. So I just thought I'd touch base on that really quick. Its role is going to be a phaser slash tank. The nature is going to be careful to boost its special defense up that much more. The item for choice, it's a toss up between leftovers and Chestoberry. Chestoberry is good with rest because instead of you wasting 2 turns and being completely immobile, you basically get a free full recovery, status and all, eliminated with the use of Chestoberry. It's a one-time use item though, I will reiterate. The ability we're going to be using is Overgrow, because that's the only really good ability that we can use. If we use its Dreamworld ability Contrary, then Coil, which is one of the moves down below, would minus our attack, defense, and accuracy. So we really don't want that. So as for the moves, the first one's going to be Dragon Tail, which causes damage while forcing out a switch. Next move is Coil, which boosts attack, defense, and accuracy by 1 stage. Leech Seed steals 1/8 of your opponent's HP every turn, and Rest, as I said before, completely heals your opponent and leaves you immobile for 2 turns. Now, as for the EVs, 252 are going into HP, 252 into special defense, and the remaining 6 EVs are going into speed, just to give you that one more point. Now, I think this Pokemon is highly underrated, to be honest with you. Like, sure, grass isn't the very best defensive typing, but there are a lot worse defensive typing out there, like ice type, for example. It only resists its own type while it's weak to 4 other types. But I'm not going to get into that. I just want to say this Pokemon is really cool, and I've used it before. I've used this specific set, and it has done wonders for me. So I just want to throw that out there. For those of you that are watching this video right now and at this point, thank you for hanging in there so far. Um, Try out this Pokemon and this set. It's freaking amazing. So that's enough rambling on about Superior. Let's move on to another Pokemon that I have for the team. And now, introducing the legendary fire dog known as Arcanine. Well, it's not technically a legendary, but just take a look at it. It's so freaking cool. And ever since first generation, it's always been one of my favorite Pokemon, but it just could not rise to the occasion. That is until 5th generation when it got some new tools to make it such a big threat in the UU tier. So I'm going to be going over everything you need to know about Arcanine on my team. So, its role is going to be a sweeper slash late game cleaner. The item that we're going to be using is Choice Scarf, and it raises speed but locks you into that one move. Nature's going to be Adamant, which lowers special attack and boosts your attack. The ability that we're going to be using is Intimidate, which lowers the foe's attack stat by 1 stage. And that can work out quite well because there are a lot of physical attackers out there, especially in the OU tier, that are really threatening, like Scarf Jirachi, Salamence, Haxorus, Conch Elder, Mineshaw, just to name a few. And once you get an Intimidate off of them, like, they're gonna debate whether or not that they want to switch. And again, that's gonna go in your favor. So just keep that in mind. You can use Flash Fire, but I prefer to use Intimidate because it's a cool ability. The moves that we're going to be using is Flare Blitz. It has a 10% chance to burn and it causes recoil damage. Wild Charge, which is an electric type move, causes recoil damage, but it allows Arcanine to smash its water type weakness by using that move. And it also has the move Close Combat, which is an awesome fighting type move, like just totally epic. but at the cost, it lowers your defense and special defense one stage, so be very wary of that. You can use Crunch, it's a dark type move, and it has a 20% chance to lower defense, or you can use Extreme Speed, and you will always strike first. Now, as for the EVs, 6 are going into HP, 252 into attack, and 252 into speed, just so it can fulfill its title, sweeper slash tongue twister, late game cleaner. Sorry about the language. To its fullest potential. So that's basically it for this guy. Let's move on to the next guy. So this next Pokemon here, it kind of looks like a ghost statue of sorts. But anyways, when I first seen it, I thought it was cool as hell. So I just had to basically snatch it up as soon as I seen it. And man, oh man, it did not disappoint at all. With a stellar base 124 attack, it can just absolutely obliterate those that basically don't resist any attacks. So its role is going to be a backup sweeper slash late game cleaner, tongue tied again, just in case your Arcanine got taken out in like in your earlier part of the battle. Uh, the item that we're going to be using, it's really up to you. You can use Quick Claw. It sometimes lets you strike first, or you can use Choice Band, which raises your attack but only allows that one move. The nature we're going to be using is Adamant to boost your attack up, physical attack up that much further. The ability that we're going to be using is No Guard, which allows you to hit all your moves, but on the other side of the coin, it allows your opponent to hit you with any move regardless of how bad its accuracy is. So just keep that in mind. It's a blessing and a curse at the same time. So the moves that we have is Shadow Punch. It is a stab ghost type move that never misses. Then we have Earthquake. And it does not hit ground types, those with Levitate, those with Air Balloon, or Magnet Rise. We have Dynamic Punch, which is normally a highly inaccurate fighting type move, but it confuses the target automatically if it hits. And with No Guard, that goes so good. You have a perfectly accurate Dynamic Punch. The next move that we have is Stone Edge, and it's a move that has a high critical hit ratio, and its accuracy is also kind of shaky at 80, but with No Guard, again, it basically nullifies its bad accuracy, and it's as if all of your attacks had 100 accuracy. So I think this Pokemon is actually really awesome and really good. Um, as for the EVs, 252 are going into HP, 252 into attack, and 6 into speed, just to give you that one more speed point. That's basically it for the lower tier guys. It's time to move up to my two OU guys. What do you say? And now, ladies and gentlemen, introducing one of the coolest freaking looking Pokemon of all time, Metagross. And if Pokemon tiers were ranked by looks, then Metagross would totally make it in Ubers, no doubt. There's a reason why my YouTube name is TheMetaChaser13x, because Meta is part of Metagross, and Metagross happens to be one of my favorite Pokemon. But that's enough rambling on about that. I'm going to get on to its role and everything else. So its role is the second part of the utility slash sweeper. Um, the item that we're going to be using, you can either use Life Orb, which is a 30% boost in moves for 10% HP loss, or you can use Focus Sash if you're afraid of getting knocked out in one hit. It basically prevents that. The nature we're going to be using is Adamant, and as I stated before, it lowers special attack but increases physical attack. The ability we're going to be using is Clear Body, which negates stat drops from foes. So Intimidate leads, moves at lower stats, forget about it. You ain't gonna be lowering this guy's stats anytime soon, unless, of course, it uses a move like Hammer Arm, which lowers its speed. But anyways, the moves that we're gonna be using, the main one's gonna be Meteor Mash, which may raise its attack. The other one is Stone Edge, which has a high critical hit ratio. The next one's going to be Claw Sharpen, and it boosts the attack and accuracy up one stage. And then Stealth Rocks, which hurts foes upon switching in. Now, as for the EVs, 128 are going into HP, 128 into attack, and 252 into speed. Because if you think about it, base 70 speed really isn't that bad, and you really don't have to max out Metagross's attack stat to like just be naturally awesome. Hence why the life orb is there. And you are probably wondering, well, why are you giving a Metagross a life orb? Why not give it a focus sash or leftovers or something like that? Make its survivability a lot better. Well, the answer to that is going to be within this last, but certainly not the least, Pokemon. Introducing, it's Blissey. And let me tell you, folks, if you even think for 1 second about passing up this Pokemon when it comes to building competitive teams, then you really got to get your head out of the ground because this Pokemon is absolutely amazing. Just its 255 base HP alone is enough to choose it. And you combine that with its base 135 special attack or special defense, oh my god, like you're going to be sponging up special attacks left, right, and center. It's just like it's so good. And it knows so many supporting moves. It's unbelievable. Like come on. So the role that Blissey is going to be taking on in this team obviously is going to be the support slash cleric. The item we're going to be using is leftovers, and I thought about using a Chople Berry to half the damage from fighting type moves, which happens to be Blissey's only weakness. But I have Golurk, who is a part ghost type, to protect Blissey from fighting type moves because it's immune to it. Um, but just in case by chance my Golurk is gone, I have my Drapion to help sponge physical attacks and fighting type attacks, as well as my Metagross to help out with sponging up some attacks. And I also have my Arcanine to lower the opponent's physical attack, so it'll be doing a lot less damage, so to speak, if I was to switch Blissey back in. Um, anyways, so I just chose leftovers because it's the only viable item that we can really put on it. Um, the nature we're going to be using is bold, which lowers your physical attack and increases your physical defense. The ability we're going to be using is natural cure, which um, basically is like a Lumberry, except when you switch out and you switch back in, your status afflictions are gone. And speaking of which, Lumberries cure any status ailment, freezing, paralysis, burn, you name it. Um, as for the moves, we're going to be using Wish, which is a 2-turn healing move. Protect to obviously protect you from an attack 1 turn. If you use it again, your chances of failure will increase. We're going to be using Heal Bell to heal your party of any status afflictions, because the last thing you want is for any of your sweepers to be burned, since all of mine are physical attackers. So just, I think Heal Bell is a great move. And we're going to be using Seismic Toss just to do a fixed amount of damage. And since how all my Pokemon are going to be level 100, including Blissey, it's going to be doing 100 damage because it depends on the level that you're at. As for the EVs, 252 were going into HP, 252 into defense, and 6 into speed, just to give you that one more speed point. Well, folks, that pretty much rounds off my team. I hope you guys like it. Now it's time to move on to the absolute last part of the video. Okay guys, so that basically concludes my tutorial on team building. There was a lot of stuff I had to go through. Like, I thought that it would take a lot less time than this, but we're talking an over 35-minute video. And I just want to say that if you stuck with it this far and listened through every single little bit of what I had to say, I know my voice isn't the most exciting, but I definitely feel that I'm improving uh, after every single video that I put up. Um, and I just like with team building in general, like just coming up with this team on the spot, like it was a lot harder than I thought it would be. Like, um, I didn't want to go all OUs and just completely defeat the purpose of a mixed tier slash fun battle, because like what fun is a battle if you're going to be using all OUs? Like, they're all super freaking powerful, like I want to use Pokemon that either are my favorite but aren't the highest of ranking in Smogon. And I also want to use Pokemon that don't exactly get the spotlight shined on them. So, um, my Drapion is RU, Serperior's UU, Arcanine, or I'm sorry, Serperior's NU, Arcanine's UU, Golurk is RU, Metagross is OU, and Blissey is OU. So, I have a mixture of tiers. Um, Now, like, I went through quite a few Pokemon before coming up with this end result right here. Like, I thought about throwing in, maybe a Forretress or a Slowbro, and even a Vaporeon. Like, a Vaporeon in Rain is just completely awesome. Like, with its ability Hydration, like, you can keep resting and resting and resting and never really go down unless, of course, your opponent decides to set up all over you and just, yeah. But I uh but I thought things over, and it took me the whole day to really think things over about, team building and about how I was going to build my team and not use all of one tier, and completely defeat the purpose of mixed tier battling, um, and of sorts kind of thing. Um, and I just basically wanted to say that I know that I'm not a pro at Pokemon, but I definitely am not a noob. Like, I know that I've had no experience in 6-on-6 Wi-Fi battling. All my experience comes from doing in-game battles at the Battle Subway in Black and White and the Battle Frontier in Emerald and Platinum. I would try different teams, different Pokemons, um, different move sets, and different purposes. Um, and through it all, I've learned what's good and what isn't so good. And, like, for example, uh, you're not going to want to really make a specially defensive metagross. I mean, like, you can, um, but there's no way for it to boost its special defense. So, leave it up to something like a Blissey, who is, like I said before, is like the god of special defense and HP. Um, I thought about using, one of the Reggies, like Regirock or Regice, to be my walls of sorts, but they both have a crippling weakness to fighting type moves. And fighting types, as I said before, are very common in the today's metagame. Um, and you have Pokemon like Conch Elder who has bulk up and can just set up all day on you and knock you out with Mach Punch or Drain Punch or whatever. So I want to be a little more creative. I know it wasn't very creative for like choosing Blissey because 95% of people who do online battling, I'm pretty sure they use Blissey too. So it's nothing really too, it's nothing original about it. So I want to be as original as possible by choosing Pokemon and giving them different roles that you normally wouldn't see or see very often. Um, but I just again, I want to say thank you to all my subscribers, to all my viewers, to those who liked my videos and took the time to leave a comment. I thank you. And to the one subscriber who wanted me to make a video on team building, this is for you, man. Enjoy all 40 plus minutes of it. I just hope you don't fall asleep. Um, that's basically it for me. I've been up since 6 p.m. last night. Like I've had absolutely no sleep in almost 24 hours. I'm absolutely exhausted, but I got to work tomorrow morning at 8, so I'm going to try to stay up a little bit longer so I can get a really good sleep because there was no point in me sleeping this morning and then waking up like right now, like my sleeping pattern would be all screwed up. So that's enough rambling on. The Meta Chaser is signing off, and I hope you guys enjoy this really long yet informative video. And I will be uploading videos within the next 3 days. Take care, everybody.